Hey, shalom, shalom from your Dutch Uncle John in Kyrgyzstan, here to tell you what it is in the letter Lamed. Okay, oh, this one's packed. You're going to love this one, guys. The letter Lamed is the 12th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. Here's a picture of the Lamed. It is the letter L, the La sound in English. If you look at the Greek, it's the lambda, or lambda, okay? There's 21,570 of them in the Torah, okay? It's used quite a lot, okay? It's not the most, it's not the least. Lamed, there is a cursive version of Lamed, and here it is, okay? You don't see the cursive much. It's not at all, of course, in the Torah. You see it in Israel on signs and buildings and stuff. So I don't know my cursive alphabet, nor do I plan to know it, but just so you know, it does exist. You know that every Hebrew letter has a meaning, a picture, a pictograph. Okay, the Lamed's picture is a shepherd's staff. And it looks like a shepherd's staff, right? The shepherd's crook, it goes up and around, okay? Where's my stick? Oh, here it is. Look, we have a Kyrgyzstan stick. There's the Lamed. And if you're holding the shepherd's staff, you have the authority. Make sense? So the Lamed, it refers to authority. Got it? Lamed is spelled Lamed Mem Dalet. And you can even put the Gematria values in for those. Lamed is 30, Mem is 40, Dalet is 4. The word Lamed adds up to 74, which is 37 times 2. There's our 37s showing up again. If you've seen other videos, you know the 3 and 7, 37 that's huge with God because he is 3. He's a complex unity, right? A Father, Son, Spirit. And 7 is his perfection, his completion, okay? So there's 3 and 7. And we're going to do a video. I've been working on one. Oh my goodness. The number 137. It shows up everywhere. That one really is going to be a cool video. Okay, the letter Lamed, its claim to fame is it's the only Hebrew letter that rises above the line. If you notice all 22 letters here, it's the only one that stands up way above all the others. Got it? Okay? And it's right there in the middle of the alphabet, looking down on both sides at all the rest of the letters. Okay? So let's go ahead and look at a couple letters that begin with Lamed, or a couple words that begin with Lamed. The first word in the Bible that begins with Lamed is found in Genesis, Bereshit, chapter 1, verse 5. And it says, God called the light day, and the darkness he called Lila, night. And there was evening and there was morning, day 1. The word for night is Lila, okay? And it's spelled Lamed, Yod, Lamed, Hey, right? And you'll oftentimes hear, you know, in Israel or Jewish people speaking, if they're saying good night, they'll say Lila Tov, Tov being good, all right? So Lila Tov, good night. Another word, place that you find the Lamed is, you remember we've talked about this in past videos, that the Torah is broken into 54 sections, and that the Jews, they're instructed to read the Torah once per year. So they will read one section every week, and if you go through the whole year, that covers 50 weeks. The Jewish calendar is a little bit shorter than ours. And they have one week where they read 2 sections, and in the last week of the year they read 2 sections, and it all works out, but they read all 54 sections. Got it? Each section is called a parsha. Plural is parshat. All right? And they'll call it the parshat hashavua, the portion of the week. And no matter where you are in the world, I know I've been on cruise ships, and they'll have in the daily program that Friday night Sabbath service will be held in the library at 7 o'clock or at sunset, whatever. And if you go, they will be reading the same portion as every synagogue in the world. So you're all staying on the same schedule. And if you can't attend your home synagogue, you're still going to get that portion at your wherever you are. But the third parsha goes from Genesis 12:1 through Genesis 17:27, and it's called Lech Lecha. All right? And Genesis 12:1, if you remember, this is the call of Abraham, right? Where God says, and now, this is 12:1. Now the Lord said to Abram, Lech Lecha, go forth from your country and from your relatives and from your father's house to the land which I will show you. It's if you see it, it's Lamed Kaf, it's the final Kaf, and then it's again a Lamed and a Kaf. And in Hebrew, whenever you repeat a word, it stresses that word. So when you say Lech Lecha, it's go, but it's go with emphasis. Go forth, go. Okay? That's the whole concept here. So there's Lech Lecha. They begin with, 2 in a row begin with Lamed. All right? Another word that we know that begins with Lamed is Lechem. You've heard this one before, I'm sure. Micah 5:2. But you, Bethlehem Ephratah, who are small among the clans of Judah, out of you will come forth for me one to be ruler over Israel, whose origins are of old, from the days of eternity. Bethlehem. Bet is house. Lechem is bread. Bethlehem is Bethlehem. Okay? And we know what happened in Bethlehem. This is where Yeshua was born, right? And Micah 5:2 is prophesying. Even the rabbis will agree. This is a messianic prophecy letting you know that the Messiah will be born in Bethlehem, the house of bread. It's not a surprise that Yeshua, Jesus, is referred to as the bread of life. And it shouldn't surprise us that he was born in the house of bread. Okay? Here's a word that begins with Lamed that you should know, and it's no. And not no as in no, but no as in no. Okay? It's the word lo. It's spelled Lamed Aleph. And you'll hear people, if you're asking somebody in Israel a question and the answer is no, they say lo. All right? Hosea 13:4. Yet I am the Lord your God, ever since the land of Egypt, and you shall know no God but me, for there is no Savior besides me. And here in that second line, you can see the Lamed Aleph, that there is no God but me. Okay, lo. And just so you know, if lo is no, yes, we've studied this one when we did the letter Kaf. The word yes is ken, spelled Kaf final noon. Okay, so lo and ken, yes and no. Okay. Yes. Let's see. By the way, this word lo that refers to no is used by everyone to mean no. Okay? If my nephew asks me, Uncle, do you want a cupcake? I would say, Ken. That's right. This is a bad example because I would take the cupcake. How about this? If I would say to my nephew, hey, nephew, would you like half of a cupcake? and my nephew say, lo, okay, no, to which I would answer, good, more for me. Okay, so lo is used universally by all to mean no. Now, we have the 10 Commandments, right? And in the 10 Commandments, we have God saying, thou shalt not, right? In fact, I think there's 11 thou shalt nots in the 10 Commandments. So when God says thou shalt not, he's using that word lo, okay? Thou shalt not murder. Lo, lo is no, thou shalt not, and then it's to resach. Lo teresach. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not commit adultery. Lo tanaf. Thou shalt not steal. Lo, what's this one? Teganab. Thou shalt not steal. So God can use lo when he's issuing a command for thou shalt not. And as I said, here are the 10 Commandments. Here's the Deuteronomy 5 version. And there's 11 times throughout there you can see lo, 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 lo. Thou shalt not appears 11 times in the 10 Commandments. Okay? By the way, 11 is, it has a meaning, and it kind of represents that something is just falling short, because 12 is God's perfect governmental number, right? There's 12 apostles, there's 12 sons, 12 tribes of Jacob. 12 is a governmental perfection number. 11 is falling short. And it's not surprising that the 10 Commandments has 11 thou shalt nots, because if 11 represents failure and falling short there, you know, keeping the 10 Commandments fails to provide eternal life. We've covered this over and over. The law was not given so that we would keep it and go to heaven. The law was given so we would not keep it, and then it forces us to look for another way, and that is God's grace, his mercy, his forgiveness, right? So now, as I said, God can use lo in thou shalt not. But as a mere mortal, I am not allowed to use lo, and the Jews don't use lo. If I'm telling you, if I tell my kid, thou shalt not, you shall not go out and play, you switch the lamed and the aleph and to aleph lamed, and you say al, and that means no. But that's mere mortal speaking. Only God can use lo in the command sense of the word. Okay? So God would say, lo teretzak, thou shalt not murder. I would say, al teretzak, don't murder. Got it? So only God gets to use the lo in a command form. Same applies to all, thou shalt not commit adultery, or I'd say, don't commit adultery, al tanaf. Don't steal, al teganab. That's mere mortal speaking. Okay. Now, the lamed, if you put it in front of a word and as a prefix, it means to, the preposition to. Okay? You may have heard this one, l'chaim. Chaim was life. L'chaim is to life, right? That's the toast that they use. By the way, we've got our giant mug, and we have some lovely Kyrgyz cola. It's obviously a knockoff on Coca-Cola, But we're going to try a bit of this and see how that is. All right. While that's fizzing down, Genesis 6:5, it says, "And the Lord saw the wickedness of man was great on earth, and that every intent of the thoughts of his heart was only evil continually." The word heart is lev. It's lamed bet, lev. Okay? Not bad. Not bad at all. All right. L'chaim. Okay. Heart. Oh, by the way, this is kind of clever. The first word of the Torah, you know, is Bereshit, right? Bereshit. We've been studying that forever. The last word of the Torah is to be in Deuteronomy, last chapter, last verse. The last word of the Torah is Israel. Got it? The first letter of the Torah is the first letter of Bereshit, Bet. The last letter of the Torah is the last letter of the word Israel, the Lamed. So you put the first and last letters of the Torah together, they spell Lev. The Torah is the heart of God. How cool is that? Very nice. Okay. Just the heart, if the Lamed is 2 and Bet, remember, Bet is the second letter of the alphabet. Aleph was the father. Bet is the Ben, the Bar, the son. So the heart points to the son. All right. Another cool word that has the Lamed, it doesn't begin with Lamed, but it's got a Lamed in it, and it acts as two different words. But in Genesis 2:20, you know, whenever God gave Adam his word, don't eat from this tree or you will surely die, then he gave Adam some work. I want you to go and name all these animals. And it says in Genesis 2:20, the man gave names to all the cattle and to the birds of the sky and to every beast of the field. But for Adam, there was not found a helper suitable for him. When Adam is naming these animals, I've told you this, but I don't think he's just blurting out sounds. He's actually getting to know these animals. And we've got the animal here, a kelev. It's a Kaf Lamed Bet. Well, we know those last two letters is a Lamed Bet. That's Lev. That's heart. The first two letters is a Kaf Lamed. That's the word Kol. Kol means all. So when you say Kelev, you're actually saying all heart. And which animal is all heart? That's the Hebrew word for dog. And a dog is all heart, as you probably know. But that's very cool. I really think Adam got to know the animals. I've done more examples of these in the, I think it was the God's Garden in Eden. On that video, we've given more examples of animal names that have true cool meanings, showing that Adam got to know these animals before he named them. Another cool word that begins with Lamed is the word Luach. And maybe you've heard of a Luach Shana. Shana is the Hebrew word for year, and Luach is calendar. So the yearly calendar, the Jewish calendar has 12 months. Here they are. The first month being Nisan. Okay. And they kind of correspond to our months. They're very close. Nisan is kind of April, March, April. It's going to fall. And their months last either 29 or 30 days. and it's all kind of based on the lunar cycle. All right, and there are 12 of those, and they have the 4 seasons right around there. Okay, and Nisan is when you find Passover, which we're filming this in March. And I've noticed last night that the moon was just about to disappear, and it should be reappearing in a few days, and then 14 days later will be a full moon, and it will be Passover. Passover is always on the 14th day of Nisan, and there's always a full moon. So it will be coming soon. We've told you about in the Torah, and throughout the Old Testament, there are some letters that are extra big, and there are some letters that are written extra small, right? Well, in Deuteronomy 29:28, we have one of the enlarged lameds. And the verse says, "And the Lord uprooted them from their land in his anger, rage, and great wrath, and he cast them into another land where they are today." He's talking about Israel and for their disobedience, okay? And it has the large lamed in the word vayeshlachem, which is, and he cast them. There's the va in the front, that's and, yah is he, and then ashkalem, or ashlachem, the M at the end is they. He cast them, the plural M at the end. And it's stressing that big lamed, that he has the authority to do what he's doing. He has the authority to cast them, okay, into other lands. Another word that has lamed in it is the word kilah, and it's a kaf lamed hey. It means finished, completed, okay? And this one you can find, and it has a cool meaning to it. In Genesis 27:30, it says, "Now it came about, as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Yaakov, Jacob, and Yaakov had hardly gone out from the presence of Yitzhak, his father, that Esau, his brother, came in from his hunting." Remember, Jacob put the goat hair on his arm, and he went in to get the blessing from his father. And he said, "I'm here, I'm Esau, I'm here to get the blessing." And he got the blessing, and he got blessed. There was nothing left to bless anybody else with. And then Esau came in later and said, "Okay, Father, I'm here to get my blessing." And he said, "Wait a minute, I just gave you the blessing." And he realized he'd been, okay. And so here it is. Came about as soon as Isaac had finished blessing Jacob. And finished, completed, it is done. The blessing is given. There's nothing left to bless anybody else with. I'm working on an Esau-Jacob talk. Oh man, is it good. Be looking for that, okay? But there he's got that lamed for kilah. It's in there. He has the authority to bless and finish blessing, and he did. All right. What do we got next here? Well, this is an interesting one. And this is in Exodus 19:5. It says, "Now then, if you will indeed obey my voice and keep my covenant, then you shall be to me a treasure among all peoples, for all the earth is mine." Okay, in that second row, the second word is a word that it's in the Torah, it's going to be written with an enlarged lamed and a diminished yod. And what this refers to is where it says, "Then you shall be to me." The lamed is the prefix, remember, for to, the preposition. And the yod is mine. Remember, we did yod, my. So this word lamed yod is lamed to Yod, me. Notice the Lamed, very big. The Yod, very small. It's pronounced Li, by the way, Li, okay? And it's kind of pointing out that the me, the Yod, it starts very small, and it's going to get big, 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 until we get the giant Lamed. That giant Lamed, what word do we know that begins with a tiny little Yod and ends with a giant Lamed? It's the word Israel, okay? And that's who he's talking about here. That Israel starts out very small, right? God went to Abraham. Abraham, I am going to bless you, and your descendants are going to be more than we can ever count, right? It's more than the stars in the sky, or more than the sand. You won't be able to count them. It's not more than the stars, but you won't be able to count them like the stars in the sky or like the sand on the seashore, okay? But it's going to start out small and grow very big. All right? Okay, let's go to Ezekiel 37. We got some reading to do here. Starting in verse 22, it says, I will make them one nation in the land, on the mountains of Israel, and one king will rule over them. Then they will no longer be two nations, and they will never again be divided into two kingdoms. Remember, whenever David was king, he died, Solomon became king. When he died, the nation split into two nations. The northern one was called Israel, the southern one was called Judah. Some of the tribes, 10 of the tribes went up, and 2 of the tribes stayed down, and some mixed into both of them, okay? So he's saying, at some time in the future, there will no longer be two nations, right? And they won't be divided any longer. Verse 23, they will no longer defy themselves with their idols or detestable images or with any of their transgressions. I will save them from all their apostasies by which they sinned, and I will cleanse them. Then they will be my people, and I will be their God. Won't it be great someday when this happens? I can't wait. He's bringing them back to the land now, He's bringing them back. Okay, verse 24. My servant David will be king over them, and there will be one shepherd for all of them. They will follow my ordinances and keep and observe my statutes. Okay, verse 25. They will live in the land that I gave to my servant Jacob, where your fathers lived. They will live there forever with their children and grandchildren, and my servant David will be their prince forever. And I will make a covenant of peace with them, and it will be an everlasting covenant. I will establish them and multiply them, and I will set my sanctuary among them forever. My dwelling place will be with them, I will be their God, and they will be my people. Then the nations will know that I, the Lord, sanctify Israel, when my sanctuary is among them forever. The reason I read all this is, first of all, it's going to be incredible when it happens. I can't wait. But it talks about David being their king. My servant David will be king over them, and there will be one shepherd for all of them. Well, when you talk about shepherd, well, there's the Lamed, right? It's the shepherd's staff, okay? And the word for king is Melech. And we're going to talk about that in a bit, but the Melech is Mem, Lamed, Kaf. It's that Lamed sitting in the center of the alphabet that sits way up above and looks at all. That's going to represent a king, okay? You'll see that in a moment here. Visually, the Lamed looks like a shepherd's crook. It looks, and it's no surprise where we get the letter L. It comes from the ancient Lamed, right? If you put these two letters together, Aleph, Lamed, Aleph we know is head of the ox, strength. Lamed is the shepherd's crook. The two together, Aleph, Lamed, spells El, which is God. It's his title. and it's the strong shepherd. Very nice. Okay, and the longer title of this is Elohim. Again, Aleph is strong, Lamed is shepherd, Hey is behold, a revelation. Something's gonna be revealed. Yod is a hand. Mem is water. So Elohim points out he's the strong shepherd who reveals his hand on the waters. This is his power title. This is, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Bereshit bara Elohim. Power title. Okay, and we also see this in the Psalm 23. You can take God's title and stick it in here, the spelling out Elohim, the Aleph is the Lord, is my Lamed, shepherd. I shall not, hey, behold, blessings are coming. He Yod his hand, leads me beside still Mem, waters. Very nice. Okay, so visually, we see a Lamed, it's a shepherd's staff, and it represents authority. That's visually. Let's look at it audibly, and what do we get? Well, the word Lamed is a letter. It's also, if you spell it, the Lamed, Mem, Dalet, can also be pronounced Lamad. And let's look at Deuteronomy. We're going to look at Deuteronomy 4:1, 5:1, and 6:1. In 4:1 it says, Now, O Israel, listen to the statutes and the judgments which I am teaching you to perform, so that you may live and go in and take possession of the land which the Lord, the God of your fathers, is giving you. Okay, in this verse, you see on the second line, the first word here, it's malamad, and it means to teach. Okay, well again, if you're the shepherd and if you got the authority, you have the right and the ability to teach. Okay, and that word lamad means to teach. Look in Deuteronomy 5:1. Then Moses summoned all Israel and said to them, Hear, O Israel, the statutes and the ordinances which I am speaking today in your hearing, that you may learn them and observe them carefully. Here, the last line, there it is, lamad. And here it's va lamad. I don't know how to pronounce it. But you can see that the root word in there is the Lamed Mem Dalet. And here it's referring to learning. So Lamed has something to do with teaching and learning, and it's all going to tie in with the shepherd's authority. Okay, you have the authority to teach. Deuteronomy 6:1. Now this is the commandment, the statutes and the judgments which the Lord your God has commanded me to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you're going over to possess it. Second line, next to the last word, it's lalamad. And actually that is the word for teach. It's lamad with an extra lamed in front of it. Okay, take the extra lamed away and it's learn. So lamad is learn, lalamad is teach. Very similar, right? And they both involve the lamed. Okay? And this Deuteronomy 6:1, actually the most important part of it is not the learning or the teaching, it's the last line. Is when all these commandments and statutes and judgments which the Lord your God has commanded me to teach you, that you might do them in the land where you are going over to possess it. Right? That's the more important part. You can learn all you want and you can teach all you want, but are you doing them? That's what he really wants. So make sure you know that is the most important part. Okay? To learn, to teach, to keep, and to do. Okay? So, lamad has to do with teaching and learning. Okay? And we have this word la'asot, which means to do. Okay? Which also there begins with a lamed. Okay, as we said earlier, lamed is the 12th letter of the Hebrew alphabet. It's the L sound. It represents authority. It's the shepherd's crook. It has a value of 30. Okay, and because it means teaching and learning, or has to do with all that. Okay, you know, people always give you the L. What a loser, right? No, I'm a lamed man. I'm a lamed. There's the lamed. We're not losers. We're lamed. We're learners. We're teachers. Good, nice. So I'm proud to put the lamed on my forehead. In fact, we should make shirts. We can make hats. Okay, we'll make the lamed and we'll put the L and we'll put an aleph and a mem, M, and we'll use the dalet. We'll use the delta. Okay, lamed. How about that for our logo, lamed? Okay. Yeah, we'll have it on hats. Where's my staff? Have these printed up, please, and we'll start selling them. Okay. Now the Gematria, we said it was 30. Okay. And it's the 12th letter. Now, because it has to do with authority, notice in the Bible, for example, Genesis 41:46. It says, now Joseph was 30 years old when he stood before Pharaoh, king of Egypt. Isn't it interesting that Joseph, remember, was sold into slavery into Egypt, right? And he gets thrown into prison. He interprets Pharaoh's dreams, and all of a sudden he raises up to number 2 in all of Egypt. He's got the authority. And when did it start? When he was 30 years old. Not surprising. Okay? 30, lamed, authority. They tie together. Okay? In Numbers 4, verses 1, 2, and 3, the Lord said to Moses and Aaron, take a census of the Kohathites among the Levites by their clan and families, men from 30 to 50 years old, everyone who is qualified to serve in the work at the tent of meeting. Tent of meeting being the tabernacle, right, or the Mishkan. But notice you cannot work in the Mishkan. This was even they give the instructions on whenever they moved throughout the wilderness and they had to tear all the tents down, the tabernacle and and move them to where the new location. You were not qualified. You did not have the authority to do that until you were 30 years old. So no one under that was allowed to tear it down, carry it. Okay, that's when you got the authority, 30 years old. 1 Samuel 13:1, it says Saul was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 42 years over Israel. Again, 30. 2 Samuel 5:4, it says David was 30 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned for 40 years. Luke, New Testament, the Brit Hadashah, it says Luke 3:23, when he began his ministry, Jesus himself was about 30 years of age, being, as was supposed, the son of Joseph, the son of Eli. And even in today, you cannot become a rabbi until you're 30 years old. That's when you get the authority. Got it? So it's really tied in with this lamed and the authority. And that's the Gematria value is 30. The ordinate value is 12. What's ordinate value? Ordinate value is just where in the alphabet does the lamed show up? And the lamed is the 12th letter of the alphabet, right? Where have we seen 12 and having to do with authority? Well, Luke 2, verse 42, it says, and when he, Yeshua Jesus, became 12, they, his family, went up there according to the custom of the feast. Then, after 3 days, they found him in the temple, sitting in the midst of the teachers, both listening to them and asking them questions. And all who heard him were amazed at his understanding and his answers. Remember, Joseph and Mary went up to Jerusalem to celebrate Passover, and now they're heading back home, and hey, where's Jesus? And they couldn't find him. They had to go back to Jerusalem, and they found him in the temple, and he was discussing and debating the doctors and the learned men in the temple. And how old was Jesus? 12 years old. You see, that's when he had the authority. 12, got it? Mark 3, verses 14 and 15. It says, and he, Yeshua, appointed 12 so that they would be with him and that he could send them out to preach and to have authority to cast out demons. He appointed 12. 12 has to do with authority. Nice? Yes, it's nice. Of course it is. Okay, now look alphabetically, or alphabetically, at the letter Lamed. We told you it sits right there in the middle of the letter of the alphabet. It's the highest, tallest letter. It's way above all the others. Okay. Look at Jeremiah 30, verse 9. It says, instead, they will serve the Lord their God and David their king, whom I will raise up for them. Well, there's the second line. You see David, Dalet, Vav, Dalet. And then you see their king. It's a mem, lamed, kaf, and then the mem on the end is the plural for, or the possessive for there. But that word for king is melech, and mem, lamed, kaf. You see, here's the alphabet up close. There's the lamed sitting above the line. And notice the letters on either side of it. You have the kaf, lamed, mem. If you read it backwards, it's mem, lamed, kaf, melech. Melech is king. Very clever that the king sits right in the center of the alphabet with his scepter, with his staff of power. Okay, right in the middle. You've probably heard this word melech before. In fact, in Genesis 14:8, it gives the example. Okay, then Melchizedek, king of Salem, brought out bread and wine, and he was the priest of the Most High God. Melchizedek. Melech, the first word is melech, that's king, with a yod on the end. What happens with a yod on the end? My king, right? And then the next word is tzedak. Tzedak is righteous. So Melchizedek is my king is righteous. Got it? We've always heard about Melchizedek. A lot of us pronounce it, right? Melchizedek. It's my king. Okay. By the way, Melchizedek is not the guy's name. Melchizedek is his title. Got it? And whenever remember Abraham went to Melchizedek and gave him 10%, and they had bread and wine, and that's a picture of communion, bread and wine, right? The body and blood of Yeshua. But when he went to this Melchizedek and gave him the 10%, when that Melchizedek died, there was a new Melchizedek. And it's the title that passed. It wasn't the guy's name, okay? In fact, the final Melchizedek will be Yeshua Jesus, all right? So, Melech means king. If you want to put a yud mem on the end, Melachim, that's kings, plural, right? We've talked about that before. You put a hey in front of a word, what does that do? Hey in front is the. So HaMelachim is the kings, or of the kings. All right? How about this one? Melech HaMelachim. That's the king of kings. This really does point to Yeshua, this one, right? The Melech HaMelachim, king of kings. How beautiful is that? All right. This word Melech for kings, Melech, Lamed, Kaf. And the Kaf, notice, is a final Kaf, a Kaf Sophit. Okay? The Kaf at the end, there's a couple words that begin with Kaf. One is the Kisei ha-kavod. Kisei is throne. Ha-kavod, kavod is glory. It's interesting, on the one side of the lamed you have the kaf, and you've got two words that apply to something that applies to a king. He has his throne of glory, the kisei ha-kavod. And on the first side, where the mem is, you have the word malkut, which is kingdom. And you know what the King of Kings, what are two important things? What are any king? What are important to any king? His throne and his kingdom. And in the word Melech, you have the lamed, that's the king, right there in the center, and you have on either side of the two letters on either side, one pointing to his throne, one pointing to his kingdom. All right? It's kind of funny also, the Melech Lamed Kaf. Mem is the letter M, Lamed is an L, and Kaf is the letter K. So in the word Melech, if you transliterated them to English, it's MLK, which is kind of interesting because in every city in America, you have an MLK Boulevard. And what is MLK? It's Martin Luther King. And Melech is MLK, and it stands for the word, it's the word king, and Melech is king. And MLK is Martin Luther King. Very clever. Every time I'm driving through Houston, if I'm driving along, because it doesn't write out Martin Luther King Boulevard, it has MLK. And I look at it and just read Melech, King. It's King Boulevard. Very nice. If you take the Hebrew alphabet, and let's divide it up, let's take the first 9 letters on one side and the last 9 letters on the other side, and that would leave 4 letters in the middle. Got it? All right. Well, those 4 letters in the middle would be Melechi. Melech is king, and you put the yod on the end, it's my king. That's nice. It says my king right there in the center. All right. Let's go ahead and add up all the Gematria values from the first side, the first 9 letters, and that adds up to 45. Let's add up the Gematria of the 9 letters on the back side, and we get 1,350. Got it? And we have that lamed right in the center, and we know lamed is 30, right? And if you multiply 30 times 45, you get 1,350. That lamed sort of ties the first 9 letters to the last 9 letters of the Hebrew alphabet. What next we got? Where we see Melech, a very cool place, is in John chapter 19, starting in verse 19. It says, Pilate also wrote an inscription and put it on the cross. It was written, Jesus the Nazarene and King of the Jews. Therefore, many of the Jews read this inscription, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city, and it was written in Hebrew, Latin, and in Greek. In verse 21, so the chief priests of the Jews were saying to Pilate, do not write the King of the Jews, but that he said, I am King of the Jews. Pilate answered, what I have written, I have written. So remember, Pilate put this sign and nailed it to the cross up above Jesus' head, and it said, Jesus the Nazarene and King of the Jews. And he wrote it in 3 languages, Hebrew, Latin, and Greek. The last one here is Greek. I don't know anything about it. It's all Greek to me. I don't know anything about Greek. All right. The Latin, though, you have, look at the Latin. You have, this is the middle line, Eusus. Well, that's Jesus. All right. Then you have in the Latin, Nazarenus, which is the Nazarene. Rex, Rex is king in Latin. And Eudium is of the Jews. All right? And a lot of times you've been in museums around the world. You'll see lots of paintings. Here's one by Raphael called Monde Crucifixion, painted in 1503. Here's a picture of Jesus on the cross, and above you have this sign that says INRI. What is INRI? There's the Latin Eusus Nazarenus Rex Eudium. It's the initials for that, okay? You see it in museums and in paintings of the Passion all over the world. You see this sign above, okay? It's a real shame that that's what we see. Here's why. Because if you look at this in the Hebrew it says Yahshua HaNatzari Vamelech Eudium. Okay? The first letter of Yeshua is Yud. The first letter of HaNatzarene is Hey. The first letter of Vamelech is Vav. The first letter of Ha'eudium is Hey. Why did the Jews get so upset with Pilate for putting that sign? Because the first letter of each of those words spell Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. The name, not the title, the name of God. That's what got them so upset. And Pilate said, nope, what I wrote, I wrote. It's kind of interesting. Pilate's Roman. He's a Latin guy, right? Even if his Hebrew is bad, it worked out that it has the name of God. I mean, it's just so hilarious, right? That he put God's name above Jesus's head on the cross. You can't write this stuff. All right. By the way, let's take Yahweh's name and let's do some clever things with it. One, let's just spread it out a bit here, okay? And we're going to put a dalet in the name. When we do that, we get the name Yehuda, Judah. Judah, by the way, is the only name in the Bible that has Yahweh's name in Judah's name. In Judah's name, you see a Yud, Hey, Vav, Hey. Just happens to have a dalet there also. And in verse 10, this is Genesis 49, it says, the scepter shall not depart from Yehuda, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. And to him shall be the obedience of the peoples. Okay? So Judah's name is actually Yahweh's name with a dalet stuck in on the fourth letter. Not a coincidence, because the dalet is the fourth letter of the alphabet, and it's also showing up in the fourth letter of Judah's name. And a dalet is a door, and we know that from this verse it says that the scepter shall not part from Yehuda until Shiloh comes. Shiloh, by the way, is a name for Messiah. And this verse is letting us know that the Messiah is going to come through the tribe of Yehuda, through the tribe of Judah. Okay? So the door to Yahweh, you want to get to God, it's going to go through Judah. And sure enough, in Judah's name, there's a door, and it leads, there's Yahweh right there with it. Okay? You're about to see here how a lot of these are all going to tie together. We have Lamed. We've got the Gematria 30, the 12th letter of the alphabet, Yahweh, Melech, King, David, Yehuda. They're all going to intertwine. Okay? It's not all a coincidence. Here's David. David is Dalet, Vav, Dalet, right? And David, remember, was a shepherd. So he has the authority. There's the Lamed. He's got a 30. We know David was 30 years old when he began to reign. So there's the tie-in with Lamed and 30 and shepherd and David. They all tie together. Now, let's take David's name and actually add 30 to it. Well, here's how we do that. We're going to, instead of adding a Lamed, let's add 3 Yods. We know Yod is 10, right? So let's add 3 Yods to David's name. We'll put one at the beginning, one at the second letter, and one with the last letter. And the Yods are, right? Yod is 10. So David's name with 3 Yods becomes Yahweh's name. And we know Yeshua, Jesus, the Messiah, is going to be the son of David. So there's a connection there. Their names are very similar, and it's the authority he was given, that extra 30, okay? Yahweh, remember, was the hand reveals, the nail reveals. Yeshua, the King of Kings, the Good Shepherd, this is that son of David. Very nice. All right. Yahweh, remember, adds up to 26. Yod is 10, He is 5, Vav is 6, He is 5. Remember, in Hebrew, there's 2 kinds of letters. There are the simple letters, and there are the complex letters. The simple letters are just independent letters, just strokes that they're the letters, okay? A compound letter is made up of 2 simple letters, right? The first compound letter is an Aleph, and a Lamed is also a compound letter. And those 2, Aleph, Lamed, spell El. We've talked about that before. The Aleph, remember, is actually a Vav and 2 Yods. Aleph's Gematria is 1, but the parts that make up Aleph add up to 26. 2 Yods and a Vav. Got it? Yahweh is 26. Not a coincidence. The Lamed, although its Gematria alone is 30, it's made up of a Kaf with a Vav on top. Kaf is 20, the Vav is 6. The Lamed, its parts add up to 26. And as we said, Yahweh adds up to 26. Very clever that Aleph Lamed, El, God, it's pointing to God is Yahweh. El, Yahweh, 26. Even the parts, the letters that spell El point to 26 Yahweh. Now let's go ahead and stick the Dalet in there. When we put the Dalet in Yahweh's name, we get Yehuda. Yehuda is, Yod is 10, He is 5, Vav is 6, Dalet is 4, He is 5. Yehuda's name adds up to 30. And it says, the scepter shall not depart from Yehuda. The scepter, remember, is the authority, right? And Yehuda's name adds up to 30, which is pointing to the scepter, the authority, shall not depart from Yehuda. By the way, this is going to be a little side note, a little side trail we're going to go on. Let me get comfortable here. You know, what it's saying here, the scepter shall not depart from Yehuda, nor the ruler's staff from between his feet until Shiloh comes. Shiloh being the Messiah. When is the Messiah going to come? The Jews under King David, David was ruling. David was the king. Then Solomon was the king, and Solomon ruled. They had the authority, right? But then, at some point, Israel gets taken over. the Romans are in charge. And now the scepter has departed from Yehuda. David was a descendant of Judah. And the scepter passed from Judah. It's no longer, they're no longer being ruled by David or by Solomon. It's passed on to the Romans. The Jews don't have the authority. In fact, when they wanted rid of Jesus, they couldn't just take Jesus. The Jews couldn't take Jesus and kill him. Why? Because they didn't have the authority. The scepter had departed from Judah. The ruler's staff had departed from between his feet. Once the scepter has passed, now it's time for Shiloh to come. So Yeshua, Jesus, he fits this prophecy here because the Jews didn't have the authority. The scepter had passed. They had to get the Romans' permission to kill Jesus. So this points to the fact that Yeshua is Shiloh. Yeshua is that Messiah, because like today, the Messiah can't come because in Israel is ruling Israel. The scepter has not departed, you understand? But it had departed during Jesus' time. Yes, it had departed. They didn't have the authority to kill him. Okay? So that points to the fact that Jesus can be and is the Messiah. He's that Shiloh. Okay? And Yehuda, as we said, adds up to 30, showing authority. Judah, Yehuda, we said was Yahweh and a door. And Yahweh's door, you want to get to Yahweh? It's going to go through Yehuda. All right. And as we said, the scepter means authority, Lamed. From between his feet, those are his descendants, Yehuda's descendants. Okay, that would be David. And Shiloh is Messiah, Yeshua. And it lets you know that also that Dalet in Yehuda's name, that Dalet can represent David. And it's through David, through that Dalet, will come Yeshua, who is also Yahweh. Okay, so in the alphabet we see Melech, King, 30. It all kind of ties together. All right, let's spend a minute here looking at some names of people that begin with Lamed. One of the early ones is Genesis 5:31, is Lamech. Although Lamech lived a total of 777 years, and then he died. Lamech, remember, was the father of Noah. And Lamech's, his age when he died, 777, is this equal to 3 times 7 times 37. Not a coincidence, Lamech. All right. Who else? Genesis 19:1. It says, now the two angels came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. And Lot saw them, and he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. Lot, this is Abraham's nephew, begins with a Lamed. Genesis 29:23. And it came to pass in the evening that he took Leah his daughter and brought her to him, and he went in unto her. Leah, this is remember Jacob was in love with Rachel, and Rachel's father Laban did a little switcheroo, and Jacob, he's planning on getting Rachel on his wedding night, and Rachel doesn't show up. Laban sends Leah, the older daughter, and Jacob, how he doesn't know this, I guess it was a dark tent, but he sent in Leah instead. All right. And then he had to work another 7 years till he got Rachel. But Jacob's first wife, Leah, begins with a Lamed. By the way, you'll notice that the matriarchs, there are 4 of them, Sarah, Rebecca, Leah, and Rachel. Together they have 13 letters in their name, for whatever that's worth. Okay. And the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, they also have 13 letters in their name, and together adding up to 26. The matriarchs and patriarchs, not a coincidence, 26. Levi begins with a Lamed. Exodus 6:16. These are the names of the sons of Levi according to their generations, Gershon and Kohath and Merari. And the length of Levi's life was 137 years. So Levi is the 3rd son of Jacob. He's the priestly line, comes through Levi, okay? And notice he's 137 when he died. I told you there's 137s are going to pop up everywhere. That 137. There's one God in 3 persons, and you have God's perfection tied in there. Who else we got here? We've got Laban. We talked about Laban. This is Rachel and Leah's father. There's also Jacob's uncle, Laban. Laban, by the way, is his name is a color. He's the only person in the Bible named after a color, and the color is white. You wonder, Laban, he was a kind of a sneaky guy, and he was pulling a lot of twists and turns all through. And why would his name be white? We'll cover that in another video, but it's very cool, the answer. Proverbs 31:1. It says, the words of King Lemuel, the oracle which his mother taught him. Okay, Lemuel. Who's King Lemuel? The Proverbs I thought were written by King Solomon, right? But then all of a sudden, Proverbs 31, you've got this King Lemuel writing it. Okay, well, here it is. King Lemuel is King Solomon. All right, how do I know that? Well, look here. Look at their names. Here's Lemuel's name. Lemuel begins and ends with a Lamed. I see that, okay? And has a Mem, Vav, Aleph in the center. Solomon's name is Shin, Lamed, Mem, Vav. And his name is not pronounced Solomon in Hebrew. Okay? His name is pronounced Shlomo. And there's a lot of Jewish men in Israel and in the world named Shlomo. That's Hebrew for Solomon. All right? So, let's take King Solomon's name, Shlomo, and let's start moving it over and moving it over. You notice that there's a repetition here. There's a Lamed Mem Vav, Lamed Mem Vav in both of their names. And I can see the mother of Shlomo saying Shlomoel. It's like hey little Shlomo El, Shlomo of God, Shlomo of El. You understand? And it just became Shlomo El, and then you drop the shin out front, and you have Lemuel. It's just it's a mother's kind of nickname for her baby, who's probably no longer a baby when he's writing this. Okay, so Lemuel begins and ends with a Lamed. Here's one. How about this one? Isaiah 14:12. It says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the dawn? How art thou cut down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations? Okay, Lucifer, does that begin with a Lamed? Well, look at it in the Hebrew. I have it in the first line. It's got 2 Lameds in it. There it is. It's in the Hebrew, it's Hillel. It's a Hey, Yod, Lamed, Lamed. And in the Hebrew, verse 12, it says, in the actual literal translation, it's how you have fallen from heaven, O shining one, son of the dawn. O shining one is Hillel. When it got transferred to Latin, if something is shining, it's got light. Light in Latin is luz. Lucifer is a Latin name. This is a horrible translation to call him Lucifer, because his name is not Lucifer. That's a Latin creation. His name was Hillel, and that means, O shining one in Hebrew. All right? So there is no Lucifer. That's just the Latin translation of this name. So we shouldn't call him Lucifer. And if Lamed represents a king, well, Lucifer ain't a king. Lucifer's not anybody, but neither is Hillel. Hillel is, we're talking about Satan here, right? And he ain't no king. He's king of the flies. No, he's lord of the flies. He's not a king. He doesn't qualify as a Lamed. Rat fink, no good. All right. Let's move on to Psalm 119. This is a great psalm that's got all the alphabet, 176 verses in it. You know the first 8 verses, there it is in 119, and that all of the first letters of the first 8 verses all begin with Aleph. Then the next 8 verses through 9 through 16 all begin with Bet. And then 17 through 24 all begin with Gimel. And if you jump down to verse 89 through 96, all of these verses in the Hebrew begin with Lamed. Very nice. Okay. Genesis 10:10. Here's a word with Lamed, is Babel. The beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech and Akkad and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Here we're talking about, what was it, Nimrod, right? Nimrod was the mighty hunter. And he's the one who said, let us make bricks and build a tower and make a name for ourselves. Okay? And the Tower of Babel. And they're creating this tower that goes up, up, up to heaven. And God realizes the foolishness of this. And he comes down and he separates their languages. And they're all speaking different languages and they can't communicate. And they finally give up on this fool's errand of trying to build a tower to the heavens. Okay? But the word Babel is Bet Lamed. And Bet is a house. Bet is a house. Lamed, we said, was the authority. Lamed also has to do with speech, language, which we're going to see in a moment. But here you have the speech, the Lamed, going to different houses. Okay? So each house gets their own kind of speech, their own language. And that's kind of the picture there for Babel, right? And they're all talking to each other in different languages that all sounds like babbling, all right? Now, as I'm saying that these different languages, or the Lamed represents language, okay, I want to show you something here in the Hebrew. This is not a bonus, but it is kind of cool how it all is going to tie in with Lamed, okay? But the Hebrew alphabet, there are 5 different kinds of your throat, your tongue, your mouth has to, these letters, the 22 letters of the Hebrew, they originate in different parts of your throat, mouth. Got it? Okay, the first group are the gutturals. Okay, and these start deep down in your throat. Which letters start down here? Well, say them and feel in your mouth where they start. The Aleph. It's down here, Aleph, right? The letter Hey comes from deep down. Those two right there. My goodness, Aleph, that's God. Yes, I can see him coming from deep down. And Hey is that the blessing, the that's that one special one. It's coming from deep down inside. Hey, right? The het starts way back here. The ayin starts back deep down, okay? Then you have the palatals. These are the ones that are formed on your palate, okay? You have the letter, watch your mouth, watch where it goes, or feel it. When you say gimel, g, it's in the back of your mouth. Yod starts in the back of your mouth. Kaf. It's almost as if the back of your mouth, it goes up and touches the top of your mouth. The letter Kuf starts way in the back. Then you have the linguals. The linguals are the ones used with your tongue, okay? The dalet. Your tongue has to press up in the back of or the front of your top of your mouth, the back of your teeth to make a dalet. A tet. The lamed, the noon, the tav. Notice where your tongue goes. The tongue is used to pronounce those 5 letters. Then you have the dentals. The dentals are the zayin. Notice your teeth are going to touch together. The zayin, the samek, the shin, the resh, and the tzadi. You can't say these without your teeth touching. And then final, you have the labials, which are your lips are involved, right? The bet, the vav, the mem, and the pei. You hear them? So there's 5 different places, and they start way in the bottom, and they work their way to the front, right? Until you get to the lips. Very clever. Notice, if you take the first guttural and the final labial and the middle lingual, it does spell Aleph. Which God, that's Aleph's, right? That's God. He's at the beginning and he's in the middle and he's at the end. He's involved in all the alphabet, right? Very nice there. And this lamed is right smack dab in the center of all of it, okay? And this lamed, it represents, look here, in Proverbs 18:21, it says, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Okay, the word for tongue is, in Hebrew, is lashon. It begins with a lamed. Okay, and in fact, Hebrew is known as the Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue. You know, a foreign tongue. Tongue represents language, right? Hebrew, by the way, is Ivrit. That's how you say Hebrew in Hebrew, Ivrit. And Hebrew is the Lashon HaKodesh, the holy tongue. So it says in Proverbs 18:21, death and life are in the power of the tongue. Watch this. Lamed, we know, is the authority, shepherd's crook. Shin is representing, because this is Lashon, tongue. Shin is teeth, destruction. Vav is a hook, nail, and, it represents and, we use it, right? And noon is the sperm or the fish, and a fish's tail is always moving, up, down, up. It's got life, noon, okay? So, Lashon is made up of these 4 letters. Let's read the verse again. What did it say? It said, death, well, the shin represents destruction, death. Vav is and. Noon is life, or in the power of the Lashon. Notice, in the word Lashon, he's got letters that represent death and life. How clever. I love it. Psalm 150, verse 1. It says, praise the Lord, praise God in his sanctuary, praise him in his mighty expanse. You know how you say this in Hebrew? That praise is hallelu, hallelu, hallelujah, hallelu el. You hear it? Halal, halal, halal. There's a double L. Your tongue is moving to praise. Okay? In fact, what halal means praise. What do you think? We get the word hallelujah. Hallelujah. We're praise Yah, praising God. And we're praising his name, Yah. Okay? It has to do with the tongue and praising and language and speech. This lamed. Okay? What else we got here? You know what? We got nothing else. But we do have a bonus. And we're going to show you the bonus starting now. Back in Psalm 119, we've told you that all those verses began with a lamed. So let's go back, and we said lamed has to do with what? Learning and teaching. So look, here are the verses. In verse 89, it talks about the word. Well, yes, we should learn the word. And in verse 90, it talks about his faithfulness. We should learn about God's faithfulness. 91, we should learn his ordinances. 92, we should learn his law. 93 and 94, we should learn his precepts. 95, we should learn his testimonies. And 96, we should learn his commandment. How cool is that? All right. To God be the glory. To God be the honor. To God be the praise. Oh, wait, what? What's this? We got our first hat come in. Let's see how. It's perfect. I love it. No loser here, man. Lamed. God bless. We'll see you soon. Bye-bye.